Pranaman.
Paul, can you hear us?
Yes.
Pranaman.
Namaskar.
Paul, you are ready?
Yes.
Time. What is the time? 7:33. Okay, we'll start with our prayers. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Sahana Bhavatu Sahanu Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om. Asato ma Sadgamaya Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya Aviravirmayedhi. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om. Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibhireditam Kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadaatatam Bhuvignanti ye Bhurida Jana. Let we be protected, let we be nourished, let we strive with energy and vigor. Let our study be enlightening and not give rise to hostility. Om, peace, peace, peace. Lead us to truth and not to untruth. Lead us to enlightenment and not ignorance. Lead us to immortality and not death. Let the self-manifest Atman grow in me. Om, peace, peace, peace. Your nectar-like words and warm and inspiring life stories, eulogized by learned sages, are indeed eradicator of shoots of knowledge. These are auspicious to hear, and it is propitious to inculcate in one's own life. Those who take these words to the world are indeed great benefactors of the world. Now this incarnation. So we are studying Sri Ramakrishna and his divine play. God incarnates in human form. Anoraniyan Mahato Mahyan. So that which is subtler than the subtlest and greater than the greatest. How that same truth incarnates in human form and why he incarnates. So these are the topics or subject matter that we are studying here. What is the reason why we should study this? So as we hear that everything happens by the will of God. Everything happens. So that means whatever is good, whatever is bad, that is happening in this world, it is happening by His will. Then why we should be blamed when something goes wrong? People may ask questions. So this is where we should try to understand, as in Kathopanishad it said, that Atmanam Rathinam Vidhi, Shariram Rathamevatu. This is body is like a Ratha, as a chariot. And the self is the owner of the chariot. And Buddhim to Sharathim Vidhi. And this intellect is Sarathi. And Manaha Pragrahameva cha. And mind is the rein by which intellect controls it. But if the horses are not tamed, so what will happen? It will take the chariot in different direction. Similarly, everything happens. So owner is like the owner of a chariot. So everything happens by his will. But if intellect has not tamed the horses, then what will happen? Say if you are going by car, you are the owner of the car, and driver also was employed by you. But if driver does not apply his intellect, and where there is the possibility of accident, he does not avoid that. An accident happens, it's because of the fault of the driver. Similarly, though everything is in God, everything happens by the will of God, but the responsibility of something wrong that has happened comes to the jiva. So what's the point then? Point is, we are to tame our horses, our senses. For that, we need to study great lives, so that we understand what is the way, how one should behave in this world, how one should use one's power of discrimination, viveka, and what is the way, which path one should tread, with which path one should follow, how one should go about it. To show all this, an incarnation comes to this world, and he teaches how to proceed with our life. And then everything is offered to God. So in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, we see all these things. How a divine life lives in this world, totally dedicated to Divine Mother. How he behaves. And he selects his disciples. He tests them. On the other hand, he also was tested by his disciples. So we are in that juncture. Masters, methods of testing, and Narendra. And he also was tested by his disciples. So here we are. So what's the point here? By studying great lives, we know what is the path. When this was asked to Yudhishthir, what is the path? And by which we should trade. So, Mahajana yena gata sapantha. So that by which great ones have traded, that is the path. That is why we should know their lives, how they interacted in this world. We should understand this. So we'll proceed with our study. Yes, Paul, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
So I'm at number 40, Yogendra's good tendencies and intelligence. From his childhood, Yogin was calm and humble and had a sweet nature. He was born with extraordinarily noble qualities. As a boy developing self-awareness, he always thought that he was not of this world and that this was not his home. His real home was somewhere far off among the stars, and his true companions were still there. In later life, we never saw him angry. Swami Vivekananda said, if any one of us has completely conquered lust, it is Yogan. Sometimes the master scolded Yogan for his tendency to naively believe everyone, but Yogan was not foolish. He was always calmly occupied with his own duties, yet his discriminating mind was constantly observing the activities of others. Whatever opinion he formed about other people invariably proved to be true. He therefore seemed to be a little proud of his intelligence.
Yeah, go ahead.
41. The master recognizes Yogendra as an Ishwara kote. As Yogin's home was in Dakshineshwar, he was blessed to meet the master when he was very young. When Yogin first arrived at the Kali temple and introduced himself, the master was very pleased to see him. He was convinced that Yogin was one of those whom the Divine Mother had long ago shown him would come to him to attain spirituality. Moreover, he was one of the 6 Ishwara kotis, godlike souls, whom the Divine Mother had later graciously revealed to him. 42. Yogendra marries, regrets it, and stops visiting the master. The master devises a means to bring him to the Kali temple, then reassures him. We have stated elsewhere that Yogin precipitously married against his will because of his mother's insistence and pathetic tears. Yogin told us, as soon as I married, I thought that any hope for God realization was now a mockery. Why should I go to the master anymore? His first teaching was to renounce lust and gold. I thought that I'd ruin my life because of my tender heart. This decision couldn't be reversed. The sooner I died, the better. I used to visit the master daily, but after the wedding, I stopped going to him altogether and spent my days in utter despair and repentance. But the master didn't forsake me. He repeatedly sent messengers and called for me. When I disregarded his requests, he hit upon an unusual plan. Before I married, a man from the Kali temple had given me a few rupees to buy something for him, and there were a few annas left. I sent the article to the man through a friend with a message that I would return the balance soon. When he heard of this, the master feigned anger and sent this message to me. What sort of man are you? A man gave you money to buy a certain article and you haven't returned the balance or even sent word when you will return it. These words wounded my heart. I thought, the master considers me a cheat, though he has known me for so long. Well, I'll go there today and somehow put an end to the quarrel. Afterwards, I'll never turn my steps toward the Kali temple. Tormented with despair, repentance, wounded pride, and humiliation, I went to the Kali temple that afternoon. From a distance, I could see the master standing outside his room, as if in ecstasy, holding his cloth under his arm. As soon as he saw me, he quickly came forward and said, "What if you are married? What is there to be afraid of? If you have the grace of this place," meaning himself, "even 100,000 marriages are powerless to affect you. If you want to live a family life and realize God at the same time, bring your wife here once. I'll make both of you fit for that. And if you want to renounce worldly life and attain God, I'll make that possible for you as well." The master was in a semi-ecstatic state. His words penetrated my heart, and the shadows of despair dissipated. With tearful eyes, I bowed down to the master. He affectionately caught hold of my hand and took me into his room. When I tried to raise the issue of settling accounts, he wouldn't listen to me at all.
So here we see how a guru holds a student. Even if the student is wanted to go away, but guru, out of his grace, infinite grace, rescues that disciple. And here it is a story, simple story, so nothing to explain here, but only the intention of the master, how he rescued his disciple from ruining his own life. That is extraordinary. So, yeah, we go ahead. Yes.
Yogan was born with the attitude of an all-renouncing monk, and this did not change even when he was married. He continued to serve the master as before and to live under his protection. Yogan's parents began to complain when they saw their son's indifference to household duties and to earning money. Yogan said, "One day my mother complained, 'If you didn't want to earn money, why did you marry?' I replied, 'Didn't I tell you again and again that I had no intention of marrying, but I gave in to your tears?' My mother angrily retorted, 'What do you mean? How could you have married unless you wanted to do so?' Her words shocked me, but I remained speechless. I thought, 'Oh Lord, I was ready to forsake you to please my mother, and now she talks like this? Forget it. The master is the only person I've met in this world whose words and thought are in perfect accord.' From that day on, I was completely disgusted with the world. After this incident, I began to spend some nights with the master."
So here, 2-3 things we have to see. Number one, even if one is married, not to worry about. The main thing is one should lead a spiritual life. And secondly, world has its own devices to attract to this world and to catch us. Only thing, one should not be swayed away, one should not be caught in the mesh. So these are the teachings here. He thought he was pleasing his mother, but actually that's a trap. Many times we are attracted by simple compassion. One person married a widow. Why? Because Swamiji in one place said that religion is not religion which cannot wipe the tears of a widow. So he wanted to wipe the tears of the widow, and he married, and then he caught up. So he later would say that, you see what I have done to myself. So this is the world. World has many devices to attract or to deviate us from our spiritual goal. So one should be very careful about it. Yes, go ahead.
43. Yogendra stays at Dakshineshwar overnight. Yogan once spent the day with the master. That evening, he watched as all the devotees took their leave and left for their homes. Yogan set aside the idea of returning home that night so he could serve the master if he needed anything. This pleased the master. They talked about God till 10 p.m. Then the master had a light supper and Yogan ate his dinner. The master asked Yogan to make a bed in his room, and he went to his own bed. Sometime after midnight, the master awoke and needed to answer the call of nature, but found that Yogan was in a deep sleep. The master did not want to trouble him, so he walked alone to the Panchavati and then to the pine grove. 44. Yogan doubts the master. Yogan had been a light sleeper throughout his life. Shortly after the master left, Yogan woke up to find the door open and the master gone. Curious as to where the master had gone this late at night, he checked the water pot that the master used for washing and found it in its proper place. Then he thought that he might be walking outside. He came out of the room and found no one out in the moonlit night. Suddenly, a terrible suspicion gripped him. Has the master gone to the Nahabat to be with his wife? Can it be possible that his actions are contrary to his teachings? 45. His doubt is dispelled. Yogan said, as soon as the above thought arose in my mind, I became completely overwhelmed with suspicion, fear, and other unpleasant feelings. I then decided that although it might be terribly harsh and unpleasant, I must learn the truth. I stationed myself near the Nahabat and watched its door. After a while, I heard the slapping sounds of the master's slippers coming from the direction of the Panchavati. Soon the master himself was before me. He saw me and asked, "Hello, why are you standing here?" Embarrassed, I hung my head in shame and fear for having doubted the master. I couldn't utter a single word. He understood everything from the expression on my face, and instead of taking offense, he assured me, "Well, you're quite right. You must examine a sadhu by day and by night before believing in him." With that, the master asked me to follow him and proceed towards his room. I could sleep no more that night, thinking about the great offense that my suspicious nature had led me to.
So one thing Sri Ramakrishna would say that, yes, you can test a monk during day and during even night. So this is in general, but for a sadhaka, an aspirant, this doubting nature is very harmful. As Bhagavan Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Shamshayatma vinashyati. Those who have doubt, even if it is given in front of them, they cannot understand or they cannot see. Of course, this is a significant incident, but it is to highlight the character of Sri Ramakrishna, and his direct disciples are like helpmate. But for a sadhaka, for an aspirant, this attitude is not good. Doubting, even whether there is God or there is no God. First, there is a bhavana. We don't think about it. Even if we think, then we think it is not possible. So doubting. So doubting Tom. So doubting Tom, Shamshayatma vinashyati. So this is one great lesson, that one should not doubt whatever Shastrasya Guru Vakyasya Satya Buddhi Avadharana. What Shastra says, what Guru said, that is 100% real and true. That one should think about. And therefore, one should avoid this wastage of human resource. So this is another aspect, but here it is to highlight the character of Sri Ramakrishna. Yes, go ahead.
46. Yogendra surrenders to his guru. Swami Yogananda completely atoned for his offense, first by surrendering himself completely to his guru and serving him, and then by devoting his life to the service of the Holy Mother when the master passed away. In the Ramakrishna order, it is rare to find a yogi and a man of samadhi so endowed with intense renunciation, knowledge, and devotion. He passed away in the beginning of 1899, merging into the divine. 47. The master's impression of Narendra after observing his actions. We have described earlier the way in which the master had scrutinized every one of Narendra's actions from the time he first came to Dakshineshwar. He found Narendra's mind to be ablaze with spiritual hunger, self-control, courage, strength, self-sacrifice for a noble cause, and other good qualities. The master further understood that Narendra's mind was so strongly endowed with good tendencies that it was not possible for him to behave meanly as others do, even when tempted by adverse circumstances. Narendra's passion for truth was phenomenal. The master was aware of Narendra's strict adherence to truth and not only trusted him completely, but was also convinced that Narendra would soon reach such a state when he would be unable to utter a falsehood, even accidentally. Furthermore, the resolutions arising in his mind would always be fulfilled. For that reason, the master always encouraged him in this, saying, "Whoever holds to truth in word, thought, and action is blessed by the vision of God, who is truth itself. And one who observes truth in thought, word, and deed for 12 years reaches a state in which whatever he resolves comes to pass."
Yeah, so before proceeding, let us conclude with Yoganandas ji. He lived a short life, though Sri Ramakrishna trained him, but Sri Ramakrishna, is inspired and instructed Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi to initiate Yogananda ji. So this is very important that Yogananda ji was the first disciple of Holy Mother. Secondly, he used to serve Holy Mother, and without any murmur, without any complaint. And with his death, Holy Mother said that we have lost the first brick of this edifice, and now one by one everyone will go. And that happened. He passed away in 1899, and then Narendra Swami Vivekananda passed away in 1902. So, and then one by one they departed from this world. So everyone had their mission, her mission, and so Yogananda ji played a great role in this Ramakrishna order. Now Narendranath was very truthful, and Sri Ramakrishna praised that, and he was very staunch about the truth. And Sri Ramakrishna said, he used to say also that he who observes truth is lying on the lap of God. So this is very important. So truthfulness is very important. Now next, go ahead.
Swami, I have a question about Yogananda's wife. Whatever happened to her?
Yeah, Holy Mother, Yogananda was ill one time, and Yogananda's wife was very morose because she wanted to serve. So under the instruction of Holy Mother, Yogananda ji returned home and she served him. But as usual, he was with strong vivek and vairagya, renunciation. And therefore, he was not attached. But since mother told to bless her, bless his wife, so he took service from his wife, erstwhile wife. But he was, Ishwara Koti. He was not small fry. So all these are examples to show how to behave, how to trade on spiritual path. What are the essential characters? These are the points.
Swami?
Yeah.
Since Yogan lived like next door to Dakshineshwar, how old was he when he met Sri Ramakrishna?
Barely 17, 18. Yeah, so like we have to see that exactly. He saw before that also, but he thought he is a gardener. But later, people would come to Sri Ramakrishna, and then he gradually was aware that Sri Ramakrishna was not ordinary. And then that story is there. Yes, go ahead.
48. An amusing incident. Narendra mistakes a bat for a chataka bird. So is that right? Chataka or chataka?
Chataka. Chataka.
Chataka. We remember an amusing incident concerning the master's firm belief in Narendra's truthfulness. Once in conversation, the master explained that the nature of a devotee is like a chataka bird. He said, as the chataka bird drinks only rainwater, it is always looking to the clouds to quench its thirst. It depends completely on them. Similarly, devotees depend on God alone to appease their spiritual thirst and to fulfill other needs as well. Narendra said suddenly, "Sir, although it's a common belief that the chataka bird drinks only rainwater, it isn't true. I've seen these birds drink water from rivers and ponds like the others." The master said, "What? Does the chataka bird drink water like other birds? Then this long-standing conviction of mine is proven false. But because you've seen this, I have no doubt about it." The childlike master became anxious, thinking, if this conviction of mine happens to be false, others may be the same. This made him very sad. After a few days, Narendra called to the master and said, "Look, sir, look, a chataka bird is drinking Ganges water." The master rushed out of the room and asked, "Where?" But where Narendra was pointing, the master saw a small bat drinking water. He laughed and said, "That's a bat, you rascal. You mistook a bat for a chataka and made me anxious. I won't believe everything you say anymore."
Yeah, even Narendra argued what Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that I talk to Divine Mother, I see her as I am seeing you. So Narendra used to argue with Sri Ramakrishna. It's all your hallucination. And it is not true. So Sri Ramakrishna was like a child. He would go, he went to Mother Kali, and told the whole story, that Narendra says that you are not there. It's all my hallucination. Then Mother consoled him. Said, Narendra is very young. He's mere child. He does not know. Gradually he'll understand. So that way also Sri Ramakrishna was assured. So Sri Ramakrishna was a divine child. And whatever Narendra would tell him, that would influence him greatly. Because as in the beginning it is said that Narendra is very truthful. So whatever comes from his mouth, that must be true. And also Sri Ramakrishna knew that Narendra was one of the 7 rishis. So all these are divine play. How the whole play was played, that is very important to see. Yes, go ahead.
49. Narendra's self-control. It is often seen that when men come into the presence of women, they become more gentle than can be accounted for by a mere sense of politeness, respect, and an appreciation of beauty. According to the scriptures, this is due to a kind of sensibility hidden deep in the heart. Such softness was almost entirely absent from Narendra's mind. When he realized this, the master was convinced that Narendra would never lose his self-control under the spell of feminine beauty. The master once compared Narendra with a devotee whom we respected highly for his frequent ecstasies. The master said, "That man loses himself in the loving care of women, but Narendra never does. I've watched him carefully. Though he doesn't say so, I find that he seems rather uncomfortable in their presence. It seems as if by turning his head away, he is asking, 'Why are they here?'"
Yeah, like Narendranath would not go by that road which leads to, say, cinema or theater or even red light area. So he would not go that way. Even later also he said, that which might harm your spiritual growth, if you don't touch by your feet. So such is his viveka. Viveka vairagya vishuddha chittam. So his mind was so pure and he was viveki. Viveki. He was discriminating or separating personality. Or in his person, we find this character that he would discriminate. Viveka vairagya vishuddha chittam. His mind was full of viveka and he discriminated. So this is very important in the life of Swami Vivekananda. Yes, go ahead.
50. The master evaluates Narendra's devotion by observing his physical signs. The master told us many times that although Narendra possessed knowledge and masculine qualities to a great degree, he did not lack tenderness and devotion. The master came to this conclusion by observing how Narendra's attitudes revealed themselves in small actions as well as in his physical characteristics. We remember that one day he examined Narendra's face and remarked, "Could one who is a dry jnani have such eyes? Knowledge and feminine devotion are blended in you. And those who have only masculine qualities don't have black circles around their nipples. The great hero Arjuna didn't have those marks."
Yeah, later also we find when he was in Western countries, it is the American women that helped him. Even East Coast, West Coast, men, say with starting with Hill family, and then even here, Mrs. Hansbrough and all other. So he used to say that whatever a bit, so he said, believe what the ladies, American ladies tell you, that you believe, but you don't believe men or like it's a preacher. Anyway, that's a other story, but here we find he had that blending of love and knowledge. So that's very, very good. Yes.
51. Narendra's response to the master's indifference. In addition to the 4 methods described earlier, the master used other means to test Narendra, some of which we know about. We shall now describe a couple of these. Earlier, we mentioned that when Narendra visited Dakshineshwar, the master would pay much attention to him. The master's heart would swell with divine love whenever he saw Narendra, even from a distance. Many times we saw the master merge into samadhi, saying, "There's na, there's na." After many such visits to Dakshineshwar, however, there came a day when the master treated Narendra with utter indifference. Narendra came, saluted the master, sat before him, and waited for some time. The master neither greeted him nor asked about his welfare. He glanced at Narendra as one would a stranger, and then remained absorbed within himself. Narendra thought that perhaps the master was in an ecstatic mood. After a while, Narendra left the room and began to smoke and chat with Hazra. When he heard that the master was talking with others, Narendra returned to him. Even then, the master did not speak to Narendra. Instead, he lay down on his bed, turning his face away from him. Thus the whole day passed, and even in the evening, the master's mood did not change. At last, Narendra bowed down to the master and returned to Calcutta. A week later, Narendra went to Dakshineshwar again and found the master in the same mood. Narendra spent the day talking to Hazra and the other devotees and returned home at nightfall. Narendra came to Dakshineshwar a third and fourth time, but found no change in the master's mood. However, this did not perturb him or make him resentful, and he continued to visit the master as usual. When Narendra was at home, the master would sometimes send someone to inquire about his welfare, but now he maintained an indifference when Narendra was present. This continued for more than a month. The master noticed that Narendra did not stop coming to Dakshineshwar, so one day he called him to his side and said, "Why do you keep coming here when I don't say a single word to you?" Narendra replied, "Do you think I come here just to talk with you? I love you. I come because I want to see you." Delighted, the master said, "I was testing you to see if you'd stop coming when you didn't receive love and attention. Only a spiritual aspirant of your caliber could have put up with such neglect and indifference. Anyone else would have left me long ago and would never have returned."
Yeah, so here Sri Ramakrishna was testing Narendra. And as we know, Narendra tested Sri Ramakrishna, putting a coin below the mattress, etc., mattress, bed sheet, etc. So Sri Ramakrishna also tested Narendra. His truthfulness, his other talents, and especially this, that his love for his guru. So that is very important. So Sri Ramakrishna also tested Narendra, as Narendra tested Sri Ramakrishna. Yes, go ahead.
52. Narendra rejects occult powers in favor of God realization. We shall conclude this topic by narrating an incident that makes clear the intensity of Narendra's longing for God realization. Once the master called him into the Panchavati and said, "Look, as a result of practicing austerities, I have long since possessed all the supernatural powers. But what would a person like me do with such powers? I can't even keep a wearing cloth tied around my own waist. So I'm thinking of asking Mother to transfer them all to you. She has told me that you will have to do much work for her. So if these powers are transmitted to you, you can use them when necessary. What do you say?" Narendra had seen various divine powers in the master since their first meeting, so he had no reason to doubt him. But his deeply rooted love of God did not allow him to accept those powers without careful consideration. After serious thought, Narendra asked, "Sir, will they help me to realize God?" The master replied, "No, they won't help you to do that, but they might be very useful once you have realized God and have started doing his work." To this, Narendra said, "Sir, I don't need them. Let me realize God first. After that, there will be time enough to decide whether I need them. If I get these marvelous powers now, I might forget the whole purpose of my life and use them to gratify worldly desires. Then they would only become my ruin." We cannot say whether the master was actually ready to transmit those powers to Narendra or was simply testing him. But we do know that the master was extremely pleased when Narendra refused his offer.
So here also we see how Sri Ramakrishna tested Narendra, tempting him all divine powers. But Narendra came with flying color and he refused to accept those occult powers. And as you know, occult powers, as Sri Ramakrishna explained, that it is excreta. So this much of renunciation should one have? This is the teaching here. So now in this chapter, we have seen how Sri Ramakrishna would taste his disciples, and also Sri Ramakrishna was tested by his disciples. Truthfulness is very important. So here, it's a great chapter, but now we go to the next chapter, Narendras, education in the world and from the master. Of course, later all these powers were given to Narendranath for the welfare of people. Once it happened in Kashipur, when Sri Ramakrishna was in trance and he called Narendranath. Narendranath came and still he was in trance. And he sat down there. Narendranath sat down there. And after a certain time, Sri Ramakrishna came down and he was weeping. And he said, today, I am a fakir, I am a beggar now, giving all the fruits of my sadhana to give, after giving those sadhana, the fruit of sadhana to you. So, Sri Ramakrishna imparted those things to Narendranath because of mother's work that Narendranath would accomplish later. So it is a great chapter. Now we go to the next chapter. Narendra's education in the world and from the master. Yes, please go ahead.
1. The master identifies a manifestation of the female nature in himself and of the male nature in Narendra. The meaning of this. Sometimes the master compared his own nature with Narendra's and told us, the person who exists within this, himself, has the nature of a woman, and the person who dwells within Narendra has the nature of a man. It is difficult to determine what the master meant when he said that, but we can come to a reasonable understanding if we study the paths that the master and Narendra followed and the means they adopted to reach God, the ultimate truth. The master learned from his gurus all of the spiritual disciplines prescribed by the scriptures for God realization, and then practiced them with complete faith. Narendra's behavior was just the opposite. He first used his intellect to ascertain whether there was any error in the words of the guru or in the scriptures, and then followed them only when they withstood the test of his reason. As a result of deep-rooted tendencies from previous lives, Narendra had a firm belief in God, but all through his life he cherished this thought. Human beings are subject to superstition and error, so why should one indiscriminately accept what they say? Whatever the outcome or origin of reasoning, nowadays people consider it manly to proceed in the spiritual realm, and in all other manners by keeping faith and devotion under the control of the intellect.
So, apparently we also see that Sri Ramakrishna is full of devotion. But within him, he is a jnani. If you read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, you'll find whatever he is saying, everything is logical. After stating something, he would give 2, 3, 4 examples just to prove that it is so, as he is saying. On the other hand, we find Narendranath, whatever he would utter, he would say logically. But within him, there is devotion, full of devotion. He would also say that when I'm intellectually understanding, so everything, I have no attachment, I'm Brahman. But when I have the sense of body, then, oh mother, save me. So this contrast we can see. And these two characters blended together so well that it's remarkable that we are to find such a guru and such a disciple. Yes, go ahead.
2. Narendra's education, free thinking, skepticism, and rejection of the doctrine of the guru. Environment plays an important part in human life. Not only does it play a vital role, it also guides human life towards its goal. So it is not surprising that Narendra's life was marked by the power and influence of his environment. Before he met the master, Narendra had become well-versed in English poetry, literature, history, and logic through his extraordinary intellect. He was therefore greatly influenced by Western ideas and indoctrinated with the fundamental Western principle that one should investigate every subject independently with the help of reason alone. So at that time, he naturally doubted the scriptures and considered some of what they said to be false. He was also reluctant to accept any man as a guru, except in the sense of an experienced teacher.
So in these two characters we find Sri Ramakrishna represented age-old India. And whatever Sri Ramakrishna was given, he held that with highest respect. So when he received initiation, he wholeheartedly practiced that. On the other hand, Narendra represented modern era, especially we. We are also trained similar way. So it is to convince modern people how one should go about it, how one should examine everything before accepting it, so that our doubts are cleared. So Narendra followed that one, and that is why it appeals to us more. But gradually we understand that as we grow, we are to take the words of Guru and teachers with full respect, with full honor. So that's why this beauty of this combination of disciple and also a guru. Yes, go ahead.
3. His father's life and social conditions supported Narendra's education. The lifestyle of Narendra's guardians and the contemporary social conditions in Calcutta supported his way of thinking. Although Narendra's grandfather, who became a monk, had great faith in the Hindu scriptures throughout his life, his son, Narendra's father, fell under the influence of Western education and the doctrine of free thinking and lost that faith. He believed that the culmination of spirituality could be found in the mystical poems of the Persian poet Hafiz and the teachings of Jesus as recorded in the Bible. Narendra's father was drawn to those books to satisfy his spiritual appetite because his ignorance of Sanskrit kept him from studying the Bhagavad Gita and other Hindu scriptures. We heard that once when Narendra's father saw him studying religious books, he presented Narendra with the Bible and told him, "If there is any religion to be found, it is in this book only." And although Narendra's father praised the Bible and the poems of Hafiz, his life was not regulated by the spiritual ideas in those books. Narendra's father, it seems, felt no need to practice religion other than to read those books and derive some momentary pleasure from them. The ultimate goals of his life were to earn money, to enjoy himself, and to make others happy by being as charitable as possible. One can easily extrapolate from this attitude and from the man's daily life how inadequate his faith was regarding God, the Atman, and the hereafter.
This is the story of almost all of us. So we love this world. We want to be a little charitable. We may go to temples or churches, but we more or less, we are anchored here. On the other hand, some people are there. They don't bother about this world. They are totally dedicated to achieve the goal of life. So it is not unnatural reading some good book and also like claiming, okay, read this or that book. So these are the ways, and it is not unnatural. It is very natural. But those who are seekers are extraordinary, because very few people are there. So anyway, we go forward. Yes.
Western materialism, which is based on the idea that earthly life is everything, had created a terrible skepticism and sometimes even atheism in the minds of people like Narendra's father. Those who propagated this materialism constantly tried to prove that there was nothing to be gained from our ancient rishis and scriptures except for more inertia and superstitions. As a result, many people lost their faith in religion and lost their moral strength. They harbored one idea inwardly, but behaved differently and thus became selfish and hypocritical. For a short time, the Brahmo Samaj, established by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, tried to hold back the tide of materialism that swept the country. But due to Western influence and conflicts within the group, it split into two and was weakened. Moreover, there is some evidence that the members of both factions also succumbed somewhat to that materialism.
Yeah, it is now, even now, there. As we see in villages, people are so full of faith. And once it happened that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was traveling in South. So a great Pandit was reading Bhagavad Gita and explaining. And another person was very close to him sitting and he was weeping. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, "Are you understanding what this Pandit is saying?" He said, "No, sir, I don't know anything about that." "Then why are you weeping?" he asked. He said, "I am seeing that Bhagavan Sri Krishna is standing in front of Arjuna, and Arjuna is praying, and Bhagavan Sri Krishna is instructing Arjuna." So this is the natural, belief and faith. Even today we see very simple people. And it is said, "Vishwase milaye Krishna tarke bahudur." You cannot prove anything by argumentation, by using rationality. Swamiji later would say that rationality is like cops, policemen. It can stop something wrong, but by rationality, one cannot achieve the reality. For that, one has to hold fast the ideal. So that is very important, that rationality has its limitation and one cannot go beyond that. Rather, rationality gives us the sense of argumentation to disprove anything and everything under the sun. So this is the harm of rational thinking, because rationality bifurcates, it dissects, it separates, whereas faith and belief, that holds, that unites. So this is very important. Yes, go ahead.
4. Narendra has no peace because he does not experience truth, despite his knowledge of Western logic, science, and philosophy. Narendra became well acquainted with Western science and philosophy after his FA examination in 1881. He had already mastered the doctrines of John Stuart Mill and of other Western logicians. Now he had great enthusiasm for attaining the truth by studying the doctrines of Western philosophers, René Descartes' doctrine of I, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am, the atheism of David Hume and of Jeremy Bentham, the pantheism of Baruch Spinoza, the doctrine of evolution according to Charles Robert Darwin, the positivism of Auguste Comte, and the agnosticism of Herbert Spencer. When Narendra heard of the greatness of German philosophers, he studied the history of philosophy and tried to understand the views of Immanuel Kant, Johann Gottlieb Fichte, George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, Arthur Schopenhauer, and others. To learn the formation and function of the nervous system in the brain, he sometimes went to the Calcutta Medical College with his friends to study that subject and to listen to lectures on physiology. He had therefore amassed much knowledge of Western philosophy by the time he passed his BA examination in 1884. But his knowledge gave him no peace because it could not offer a definite method of knowing God, the absolute truth that is beyond the limit of the human mind and intellect. When Narendra realized that his learning was utterly inadequate to reveal the truth, the current of restlessness flowed more strongly in his mind.
Yeah, so this happened in Narendra, and this is a modern thought process. You know, there is a novel, Devi Chaudhary, which was read in front of Sri Ramakrishna, where the opinion is the one first go through all the scriptures, the logic and grammar, etc. Sri Ramakrishna said this is like intellectual jargon, what one can achieve through these kinds of jargons. Rather, one should hold fast to the ideal. But anyway, we don't discard anything, but the warning is there that it is a labyrinth. Rationality is like a labyrinth. If one loses oneself there, then it's very difficult to come out. Whereas faith and belief in the words of gurus and also in scriptures, one can achieve the highest. The example is Sri Ramakrishna. So this is a wonderful study that we are undertaking. The disciple should take everything understanding rationally as Swami Vivekananda, and Guru should be happy to impart that truth as Sri Ramakrishna. In Bhagavad Gita also we find wherever Arjun had some doubt, he asked the question. In our tradition there is opening. You can ask any question that you like. Only thing you must accept with open heart. Otherwise, you lose something. If you doubt all the time, then you lose something very precious. So anyway, we'll stop here. Hope there is no question.
I had a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Like some people, they force us to do something and we don't want to do, and they say that you are not thinking of our happiness. So how to deal with them?
Okay, say we have seen in the life of Swami Yogananda. His mother said that what will happen to me when I die, what will happen to you? So I am now getting old and you are not thinking about my health. And if I get my daughter-in-law, then she can help me. And if you marry, then I'll get a daughter-in-law to help my household chores. So there, to please others, we may lose our ideal. But it does not mean that whatever is legitimate, whatever is rational, one should neglect. So this is a tightrope walk. One should think about it, and whatever now what is the solution? There should be three ideas. If you are choosing something, that should give you confidence, number one. That should give you fearlessness, number two. And the number three is it should give you joy. I'll give you an example. When a person steals something, so he is not sure about it. All the time he's doubting, people might have seen. So he is not confident. And he's full of fear, all the time full of fear. And he cannot enjoy, even while having that money for his enjoyment, he cannot enjoy. On the other hand, if you are giving something, maybe $2 or maybe $1, maybe a penny, without expecting anything, that will give you confidence, that will give you fearlessness, that will give you real joy. So, any situation, you have to analyze. If I take this path, will it give me confidence, fearlessness, and joy? Or if I take this path, will give you confidence, fearlessness, and joy? So you can select accordingly. People may say many things. It is difficult also. Like when we leave our home and hearth, say my case, I was eldest and I was very obedient to my parents. I could not even think this, but situation happened. Then I compared. See, a time comes when the shell of an egg is to be broken, then only the chick that is within will survive. If the shell is not opened or it is not cut open, the chick will die there. So I wrote to my father that the time has come that I feel. I wrote many things, just I'm giving one example. A time comes when a daring decision has to be taken. It may not be pleasing. So there are two ways. One is Shreyaha, Preyaha. Shreya is whatever is pleasurable. So it is not a path of pleasure. I denied my family. But there is a path which is akin to the ideal, Shreyaha, what is for the betterment oneself. And later, even my parents could understand that this is the way. Even I asked my mother, what do you think? You have other children, and I have neglected you. I have left you. Have I done anything wrong? My mother said, no, my son. She had no words, but what she said is, we all are proud of you. So, what is the point here? I'm trying to drive a point that people may say anything, but you have to decide what is good and what is not good, what is pleasurable and what is or say like a praisable. Sreyaha. There is no equivalent word in English. What is better? So this is the idea. Idea is that which uplift you in a spiritual path. That is good. It may be difficult. It may be not pleasurable, but that will ultimately do good to you. Right? Yes.
If Sri Ramakrishna was bhakti on the outside and jnani on the inside, and Vivekananda was jnani on the outside and bhakti on the inside, what was Holy Mother?
Okay, very good. Holy Mother. Example of Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Raj Yoga, everything together. She has no parallel, no explanation. It is real, it is wonderful. We cannot explain what she is. Through her constant work, constant service, unthinkable, service to people, all kinds of people, helping them. Her goal of life is to help others. And not only help, it is love, loving others, deeply loving. We don't see anywhere. And with Karma Yoga, she is full of knowledge. She is Saraswati herself. Surendranath, I think Mitra, wanted to have initiation from Swami Vivekananda. But Swami Vivekananda said, no, I am not your guru. You have a better guru, more powerful than me.
It exactly says the higher power than me will actually.
Yeah. So he thought that Swamiji was neglecting him, denying his legitimate, request, and that is why he is taking this pretext. But later it happened that he received mantra in a dream, and later he received this mantra from Holy Mother herself, and immediately said, "Oh, this mantra I have received." And Mother smiled, "Yes, my child." In dream, he asked, "Who are you? You are imparting this mantra." And Mother said, "I am Saraswati." So she's full of knowledge. Don't take her say apparently. She's full of knowledge. And she's also would go to Samadhi whenever she wanted. But she pretended, like with this covering. Chai chapa beral. Like ash, covered by ash. The cat covered by ash. So that's what. And Raj Yoga, then Bhakti Yoga, full of devotion, totally dedicated to Sri Ramakrishna. Everything is Thakur, like this. And what is service? Devotion translated into action. Devotion translated into action is Bhakti Yoga. And we can see in Mother. So Raj Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Karma Yoga. Everything there. It's amazing, amazing life. Okay. Thank you very much. So we say our prayer. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. When Sri Ramakrishna would say, "Is she small? She's my Shakti." Sri Ramakrishna in other form. Shakti of what Sri Ramakrishna is, everything is because of her. Just read. You'll find wonderful, answer from Sri Ramakrishna, Swamiji. Janto Durga, living goddess Durga. So, thank you. Thank you very much.
Pranam.
Pranam Maharaj.
Namaste.
Jai Ma.
Jai Ma. Wonderful.